Hi everyone, welcome back to Aether. Sunday at 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific. That's what we come on live every week. So this week, again, we are continuing the same topic, what's happening in Canada. And the topic is Canada Awakening and Healing Together. So we don't take this as just a small thing. It is big, but it's like we take it. How can I say? We're taking it seriously, and we are looking at this as an opportunity for us to be more awake and heal together as a whole, right, as a human being, right? Not just country, not just us, but as a whole. So that's why we're doing this and continuing to talk about this. And we are always welcoming opinions, different point of view, different perspectives, questions are always welcome. We are open to receive those things. We don't want to be one-sided. And so, it's always welcome. So please don't hesitate to leave comments, your view, questions anytime. Okay?
We typically focus on individual healing and growth. That's the purpose of this channel. But what we're seeing is kind of a social movement that's happening around us, and everything for the last 2 years, ever since this bug has hit the world and everything has kind of turned upside down. It's all been about affecting our health, right? The whole subject matter is being defined that way. It's about our health and our safety and all that kind of stuff. But we see this social movement that's happening right now as part of a movement towards personal health and healing as well, in a different way than what was kind of the storyline from the beginning. So in other words, what I'm trying to get at is, in more specific terms a little bit, all those mandates have really affected people's mental health. There's no question of that, right? People are depressed, they're anxious, they're kind of in shock and kind of confused about what's real, what's not real in a lot of cases. But they're just tired of all these limitations, right? And there's been a lot of changes in what has become known, right, over time, and we can talk a little bit more about that and then as we get through this, because we've got a great interview that we'd like to share with you today that we did at one of the events
yesterday.
Do you want to tell them a little bit about the event and what that is, right? So what do I mean by an event?
It was happening in Vancouver. I think it's pretty much happening every day, and so Riley was going anti mandates, right? So that's the main purpose, that people were going there, and it wasn't a huge group, and then it was rainy and cold. But we found some people who were willing to share. Is that what you're looking for?
I guess so. We actually heard there was more than one event at the same time, and so people split different ways. And so we went there because we wanted to hear from people directly what they think, right? So why are they being motivated to go to these events? Right? What is going on, and how do they see the world, right? Because some people aren't attending, and there is a media version of these events, a government version of these events, and so we ourselves, we want to know directly what is really going on. What's the story here? Because we don't like to take second-hand information so much, right? And if there's any way we can avoid that, we try to avoid secondhand
because
information.
it's dangerous,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And then story always changes,
Mhm.
right? Even if you're trying to tell the truth,
Mhm.
it always automatically, subconsciously putting your view into the story.
Yeah, yeah.
And then if you're hearing the story, what happened from this person, right? And then it might not be 100% true.
Mhm.
It could be true to that person, but it might not be true to this person or
Mhm.
anything. So we want to bring ourselves into that place and then see with our own eyes and
Yeah,
hear with
yeah.
our own ears.
Yeah, exactly. So we know for sure if it's something that we can connect with, right?
Mhm.
And because it's very important. I mean, it's we've never seen. Canada is not known for its demonstrations. I'll just say that, right? The weather is horrendous. If you
Mhm.
wanted to conduct a
Yeah.
demonstration outdoors, right? It's
Mhm.
very hard.
Yeah,
So
especially this time of the year.
this time of year, which is February, it's the middle of winter,
Yeah,
right? So
very cold.
it's really cold, and there's other things. There's a lot of in our area we get a lot of heavy rain or wind or
Mhm.
something like that as well. So not the best for going outdoors. And it was rainy yesterday, so not as many people came. And
Mhm.
yeah, but so what I'm trying to get at is that it's remarkable what we have seen, like in our own town, right? It's not the smallest, not the biggest town in Canada. It's kind of in the middle. There's been an unbelievable amount of demonstration that's happened.
Mhm.
Is it every day that people are out demonstrating, or a lot of days?
Yeah.
I'll just say for sure they're out there a lot of days,
Mhm.
and the size of the demonstration varies
Mhm.
quite a bit. But it's just even in our town, or also they have like the convoys coming through, the truck
Mhm.
convoys coming through, and they're doing slow rolls, going from town to town and areas within in certain towns and that kind of stuff. And there's these border blockades, right?
Mhm.
That are actually close to us. One of them is happening there. So and it swept the country. It's just like there has never been anything like this in Canada
Mhm.
ever.
Mhm.
Not even remotely close. I mean,
Mhm.
this has got to be 100 or 1,000 times bigger than any other social movement in Canadian history. Seriously, it's that big.
Mhm.
And there is like they used to say that it was a fringe minority. No, if this many people are involved, there's not a minority.
Mhm.
There's a lot of people involved in this who are supporting this. So we want to know. We want to know what's going on. It's important, right?
Mhm.
And it's critical for the way we're living our lives right now. Are we going to live with these mandates or not, right? All that kind of stuff. And are those mandates effective, right? So are the sacrifices that we're making and dealing with all this isolation, the like I mentioned, the depression, the anxiety, all that stuff, that we're dealing with all those mandates and all that messaging from media that's making us not feel safe, even though they're saying it's for safety. But anyway, and that affects if our mental health is not good, that directly affects our physical health. It might just take a little bit more time, but it's been 2 years now, right? So people are hurting, right? And they're kind of desperate for some way, some pathway out of this. And up till now, our leadership has not provided any path out. Nothing.
They're refusing to have a plan.
Yeah,
Right? That was the last big one, right? And then the member MPs or what was that MP? I'm getting confused, but they were asking for a plan from the Trudeau.
Yeah, that would be MPs. Yeah.
Yeah,
So that's in Ottawa, the federal government, the House of Commons. Yes.
And then that it's not like an end mandate or anything. It's just asking for a plan, right? And then they refused it.
Yeah.
To have a plan.
A plan to get a plan out of this stuff.
So does that mean that there's no plan means we're just gonna stay
make it up as we go along? And
yeah,
so
that's how it has been that way, right?
Yeah.
And
it's been unprecedented the way it's been run here in Canada. is that they put these health authorities in charge of each province, and really they just come up, they use whatever means. I'll give them, as much benefit of the doubt as I can, whatever means they're using to come up with these rules and regulations. They just come up out of the blue any old day of the week, and they say, we're going to change, the rules are changing again, they're changing again, they're changing again, they're changing again. And it's been for 2 years, they've been moving the goalposts. So, at first it was just 2 weeks to flatten the curve so that we would, bring the infection rate under control and all that kind of stuff. But then it just, more and more and more stuff was being asked, and then turned into, mandatory vaccination. What? Right? So people being forced to vaccinate or choose to not work and stuff like that. And so that's why we're talking about it. And that's why when we want to find out about it, and that's why we want to engage you in this conversation about it, because it is so important for people's lives. It's defining our country, right? And the freedoms that are considered to be, what does freedom mean, right? And that's one of the things I'm asking some of the people at these events, and it's actually, I'm not sure if I'll be able to get to it on this one, but we'll try, and we'll focus on that on more upcoming ones anyway. So please send in your questions and comments, and we'll be happy to address those. And if you want to go to the first part of the interview?
Sure.
Yeah, sure. So I go to here. I'm going to fumble with technology here for a second. Please put up with me. So I'm going to share.
Right.
Share screen, I think.
Yeah.
Okay. This is not in Chrome. Please give me a second. Okay, here we go. Click. Maybe you can talk and entertain them. Keep them.
So yeah, this two guys, one main guy we interviewed, and they have drums. Right? And they have drums, and I don't know, we are including this one as why are you carrying the drums? That was one of my questions, and he said drums makes me happy, right? And happy, when you're happy, you feel safe, and you're not feeling fear, and you are feeling safe. And when you're feeling safe, you can do lots of things, right? And being yourself. And so that's why he's doing it. And then also he said it's contagious. Happiness is contagious. When he's doing the drums and he's happy, he spreads the happiness vibe to others, and then other can be happy, and then being happy again, feeling safe, no fear, right? So that's why he was carrying drums and playing drums. So yeah, I loved it. And then we have some short clips that them playing drums, and then maybe we were able to show that.
I think I might have not selected audio here. Hold on, give me a second. Keep talking.
But anyway, so there's what else? And then and the little one showed up after they played drums, and then just tiny, I don't know, maybe 2-year-old, at most 1.5. Right, that tiny guy showed up, and then and he started playing drums, and it was so cute. But
oh my God, that was adorable.
Yeah, just like this guy's talking about that, right? Just spreading the happiness, and everybody's feeling safe to join drumming, right? Not like I don't know, right? It's instead of having distance, it's joining, and then having it was just us, and then the group gotten bigger, and then people playing drums, and then just dancing around and just spreading happiness. And that was really cool to see. But,
I didn't see a question here about audio. Sharing the audio.
Let's see.
Maybe I hope it works.
So you wanna?
Yeah, let's give this a try. If anybody's watching and you can hear, if you don't hear anything.
Whole thing about
awareness.
there's two sides. There's the love part, and there's fear part. So you have to accept the fear and study it, not power from it, but live in the love part. But spend some time in the fear part to know it. Look, you have to know what's going on. It's because you will be fearful when you hear the evil in the world. When you explore this evil, you go down the rabbit hole, so they say. It's freaking scary. If you don't believe people actually, are this evil, but you have to face it, or else you can never fight it, right? And that's why this whole new age movement is you'll see a lot of truthers and new agers. They're all about positivity, but they call it toxic positivity, because you're living in positivity without acknowledging any of the bad stuff. So how can you fix the bad stuff if you don't know about it? So you do have to spend some time in the bad to to know what you're fighting, right?
Okay.
So you have.
I think what you're saying is, your recommendation is that people become aware of what's out there.
Yeah.
But don't dwell on it.
Yes.
Don't just focus on that.
Yeah.
Because if you focus on the negativity,
yes,
it draws you in, and
yes,
you become pulled down.
Yes.
And you're not able to function correctly.
Yes.
Your health, your immune system gets pulled down, all that
Yep.
kind of stuff.
Yep.
Because you're depressed or
Yep.
anxious and all that kind of stuff.
Yep.
I think that's what you're saying.
Exactly what I'm saying.
So instead, what you're saying is investigate enough, but keep it at arm's length.
Yes.
Don't let it get into your heart.
Bingo.
Right?
Yes. Yes.
So become aware.
Yeah.
Like you said, crossing the street.
Yeah.
You gotta look around.
Yeah.
You gotta be aware of when the cars are coming.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
When the light says you can go.
Exactly.
Right? So because you gotta be afraid enough of a car to be able to avoid it
Exactly.
being hit by one. Right?
Exactly.
So,
And that's why
but you can't be obsessed about being hit by cars.
No.
If you only focus on being hit
Yes.
by cars, you're not going to be a happy person. You're going to be all that stuff.
Yes.
So you're saying, I think, an answer to the question is awareness and balancing
happy.
the awareness,
Yes.
and then staying in your heart,
Yes.
and coming at the whole situation from a place of love.
Love. Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Right. Exactly.
Exactly.
Rather than a place of fear.
And a lot of people, and this is what this.
So, this guy had really a lot of great insight, and the question I asked him at the beginning was, how do we get out of this? How do we get out of this problem that we're in the world? And like you said, you just saw, his answer was essentially to stay in a place of love.
Mm-hmm.
So if we're coming from a place of love, rather than being afraid, or just in a place of fear only, being obsessed with fear, because he was parsing it, right? He was saying that you got to have a certain amount of fear, like to be. So in other words, you can't just say everything is just all wonderful, right? Everything is good no matter what is going on, right? And we're using the example of traffic, right? If you think that everything is perfect no matter what, and then you walk out into the street and you can get hit by a car, right? If you have no fear of cars, right? You're not aware of the cars, you're not afraid of them, then unfortunate things happen, right? So he's parsing it and he's saying, but the thing is, as long as you have that awareness of possible dangers that are out there, and then you you use that awareness to avoid them, but then you stay in a place moment to moment, in a place of being in your heart, being centered in a place of love, then you're not drawn down into what obsessing about fear does. Excuse me.
Yeah.
So
that's important. It's dangerous not to feel any fear, right? But it's dangerous to have lots of fear constantly, all the time, staying in fear, right? So he's talking about balance, right? A little bit fear, use fear. We talked about it a long time. Use fear as a guide or something.
Did we talk about Aether? I know we did a video about it. Okay. But
I think so. But it's just a little guide, right? To guide us to avoid this situation, right? Just look out when you walking across the street. Just check,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
So that's healthy
Mhm.
fear,
Mhm.
right? But if you are like, oh no, oh no, oh no, oh no, all the time, it's unhealthy,
Mhm.
right? So the balance, we need to have balance. That's his talking.
So, what would you say, Satomi, about what you see where we are?
Mhm.
Do you see people being in a place of fear too often, too much,
You
obsessing
mean
about fear?
in this situation?
Well, it's kind of a complicated question
Yeah,
to lay out there. So
okay.
I'm saying people in general, but let's talk
So
about
focus.
the people who are for the mandates and people who are against.
Mhm.
Do you see a tendency one way or the other that is there a tendency to go into fear too much on both sides of the equation, or is there less or more on one side? Do you feel?
Yeah, I would say tendency for both sides to go into deeper fear.
Too much fear.
Too
Obsess
much,
about
yeah,
fear.
Obsess about
Yeah.
fear.
Anxiety, in
Yes,
other words, to be
yeah.
anxious.
So
right?
like who's pro mandate, they worry about getting sick and dying, right?
Mhm.
That's their fear, and the other side is would say government controlling us, and then just
Or-
it can,
sorry, you go ahead.
yeah,
Yeah.
and then it can be just one example,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
It can be a fear, and then
Yeah.
you living in fear,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say that it's either you can say either they're on the anti-mandate side.
Mhm.
There's conversations that you hear that can easily sound like people are too concerned, afraid, or anxious, or obsessing about government control, like you said, but also that the government is all powerful and an evil force, right? So whether or not that's true, that let's put that aside for a second, and it's just what we're talking about right now is the fear of those things, right? That's all we're talking about. Don't worry about the facts, or about those particular facts. What we're talking about is being obsessive in the fear, and you would say that on both sides you see some of that.
Yeah, I think so, and it doesn't matter which side you stand. It's important to have balanced yourself balanced, and am I in a fear more often, or I'm okay, I'm keeping the balance, right? Doesn't matter which side where you stand. It is always I would say most important thing. To live, right?
Yeah.
Doesn't matter what you do, if you let your fear control your action, no good outcomes that you will receive.
But I'm
right?
I'm going to challenge your answer a little bit.
Sure.
So when if you say that the people who are against the mandates are obsessing about fear, in the past, and historically, whenever there's like a movement of people, or a group of people who are obsessively afraid of the government doing something bad, right? What you tend to see is violent social movement. In other words, rioting, right? That kind of stuff. Or something, or even more like all the way up to some kind of revolution or something, right? So people, in other words, they start, arming themselves and marching in the streets and that kind of stuff, and burning buildings and etc. Right? So things, if they're in fear because they're afraid of the bad guys, the government, they're fighting back. They resort to fighting, and they take those kind of actions. But what we're seeing in these demonstrations is that people are staying I see them staying in love, right? So that they are, in other words, what they're doing is they're just demonstrating peacefully. Number one, 100% peaceful demonstration. I mean, they pick up litter, right? when by the time that the demonstration's finished, the place is cleaner than when it started.
Mm-hmm.
What? Right? When does that ever happen?
Mm-hmm.
When do you ever have a flea market
Mm-hmm.
when by the time it's done, it's cleaner than when it started?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So they're so careful about not doing damage or creating any kind of conflict,
Mm-hmm.
even though they're standing up, right?
Mhm.
You'll see them sometimes face to face against
Mhm.
police officers. And what we saw
Mm-hmm.
just recently in Ottawa, for example,
Mm-hmm.
on the Ambassador Bridge in Canada,
Mm-hmm.
and elsewhere, is that the police have been the aggressors,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
It's the government who's been the aggressor.
Mm-hmm.
They have shoved the people
Mhm.
out of the way,
Mm-hmm.
and they refuse to listen to them, right? Because these people just wanted to be heard.
Mm-hmm.
They wanted to have some. They wanted to have their voices heard, because honestly, the media doesn't cover it. The media doesn't tell their story. The government is calling them the enemy, and influencing people to consider them the enemy. So I see the demonstrators as demonstrating enormous
Mm-hmm.
um, um, self-control, staying basically centered and in a place of as much love as you can expect. I mean, is everybody hugging constantly in a big big group hug? No, but there are hugs. I see guys walking around with free hug t-shirts on, right? And people are very friendly. People are very welcoming. They're very accepting. We talk with people across enormous differences, right? They're normally people that wouldn't talk together, right? We see them talking together, all races, all religions, from the most conservative to the most liberal to the it's quite remarkable what I see.
Are you still challenging
So
me?
when you said you saw it on both
rough.
sides, what I think you're getting at, and tell me if I'm right or not, because what I see is that the demonstrators are staying basically in a place of love, right?
Mm-hmm.
What I think you're talking about is that sometimes when you get into conversations and people can get negative to a certain degree. Like when you start talking deeply about government control, it's kind of a heavy conversation, right? And you can feel the fear come out in that conversation. You're afraid of what the government might do if it runs unchecked, unrestricted, and has full control over everything, right? And so you tend to see that. So I think that's what you meant. Is that fair?
I think what I said is they have tendency. They could do both sides. I didn't say both sides. They are in fear. I didn't say that. I don't know. You took it that way. Maybe that's why you.
I'm challenging to clarify at the very least.
So
right?
like they doesn't matter where they stand. There is a tendency to go into fear, and then there's a possibility to go in fear. Doesn't matter. And then the challenge is for us always checking yourself, and then checking to see if you are balanced or not, if you're not in fear so much or not. That's the challenge. Doesn't matter where you stand, and that is the most important thing. That's what I said. So
okay.
I don't know. Your challenge is you kind of lost me. You just kept going.
Well, okay. So just in short, what I'm trying to say is what I see the demonstrators doing is staying in a place of love when they're doing the demonstrations.
Okay.
Would you agree with that?
So I say you use the word I don't remember what it was. Self-control. Yes, they are aware that they cannot use any violence. They
Mhm.
cannot use any negative energy.
Mm-hmm.
They are so aware,
Mm-hmm.
and because they know that government is waiting for the demonstrators to show little violence,
Mm-hmm.
and then they can jump on just tiny little things and then destroy everything, right? So they are so aware about it, and then they are self-controlling, and then yes, I see see some frustration comes up and anger comes up, and some negative.
I see
Yeah,
that too. So I'm
negative.
not turning
Yeah,
a blind eye
right.
in any way.
Negative, negative word on the flag, and then right.
The F
Yeah.
word.
F word on the flag.
Yeah.
Yes,
To a certain person.
that's not. That's not. I wouldn't agree. It's coming from love,
No,
right?
it's frustration.
Yeah, it's frustration, and I get that, but
Yeah.
they are helping each other, right? If somebody sees somebody losing control and getting too frustrated, they help each other to.
I have seen that too. Yeah. So
Mhm.
demonstrators, like especially when it gets right up to the line, the police are challenging, like it's face to face. A demonstrator might get really angry, right, and start expressing that to the police officers, right. I've seen the other demonstrators again and again. They pull them back and they calm them down, right. So there's that self-control, right?
Yeah,
and it's not like they're being ordered to calm down. It's not like in the police force where they have a hierarchy of control, right. They're just told to calm down, right? And they do. They listen to each other. So it's actually a lot of support so that it stays.
Yeah.
So that frustration expressed on a sign doesn't translate into violence, right?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So so I can say they have huge self-control. That is for sure. That probably nobody's seen before.
I've never seen it before in any demonstration.
Yeah.
Honestly, except for I did participate in the Peace March in Vancouver in the 80s one time. But I mean, who's gonna? It was just a march through the streets, right? Nobody's gonna really take issue with that. They weren't facing off against stuff. There wasn't an activist dimension to that I was aware of anyway. But anyway, these are very, very, I would say, very, very self-controlled, very, am I saying everybody's a Buddha there? No. Are they 100% love inside them? No, they're people, right? But the fact that they are staying centered enough and aware enough to engage in a peaceful way, in a peaceful demonstration, to me shows that they're staying on the side of love enough to be, first of all, not demonized, right? Why would people demonize them if they're just peacefully demonstrating, right? So that's what I see is different as what happened in the past. First of all, they're staying. You could say in general terms, I would say it's fair to say they're staying in a place of love, right?
Yeah.
So in that sense,
they are doing their best.
Yeah. So when like I was saying, when you get into a deep conversation, sometimes they can get kind of upset, right? Some of their upset comes out when you really start talking about it and you focus on it. And then that's a hard conversation. And they're not really staying in a place of love at that time, but it's still just conversation. On the other side, on the government side, I don't see that as a place of love. The government has blatantly refused to speak with them. The government has called them all kinds of really awful names. The government has used propaganda against them. The media has jumped on the side of the government and has demonized these people to make them seem as though they're a threat to the country somehow. How are they a threat to the country?
Emergency act.
Maybe there's vague things maybe you could point to. Maybe they're afraid of, a right-wing conspiracy that turns to violence kind of thing. They're not violent. Whatever their political beliefs, they're not violent.
In Ottawa, it was zero violence until police uses their force.
And it was only the police who were violent.
Yeah.
Again,
Against
even though they were slept right out, nobody fought back. I mean, sure, did they lock arms or something like that? And did they make it hard for them to pick them up? Yeah, but they didn't actively fight. So again, they stayed in a place of love, even though they were, oh man, that's crazy. And all that negative press and everything, it's, so, and then when I hear other people talk about them, sometimes if people are pro mandate, I hear them use the words that the media uses, right? They use those words, and they're not nice words. So I don't see that as staying in a place of love. There's a lot of accusations put out. I don't hear the protesters accusing. I hear them standing up for what they believe in. I hear the people who are against them accusing.
One thing I notice is that against mandate people who's protesting, they don't point finger at those who's pro
mandate people who are pro mandate.
They don't. They're like great, right? And
they're actually trying to engage them in conversation and trying to be in a dialogue with them.
And they still doing their best to send love toward those people, right? But pro mandates, pro vaccine, I've seen them being aggressive and calling names and throwing eggs and key in the car,
swearing at them, saying really unpleasant things as they go by. Yes, I've seen that a lot. But the protests or the demonstrators, they don't respond back. They don't say, if the people who are pro-mandate are passing by and they share their feelings, it can be very unpleasant. They say unpleasant things. There's not a response that's unpleasant. What I see people do is saying, "We love you too." So
we saw at least one.
It was crazy and incredible, actually.
One bird flipping yesterday.
Yeah. Oh, he did. I didn't see that one.
Oh,
yesterday,
everybody was.
I gotta give it to them.
She was angry.
Yeah,
right?
that's what I see. That anger. So that's why I challenged you, is just to break it down a little bit more. So, of course, there can be on both sides to some degree, but I see on the whole, the demonstrators are staying. The anti-mandators are staying in the best place I could imagine them possibly staying.
They are. I can feel they're doing their best.
Yeah.
The very, very, very best to stay in center, because they know that is the way out.
That's the way out of this, is to stay in our hearts.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Everybody we talk to, right?
Yeah.
And they know, like they know and they feel it. Love is stay in love, not fear. You probably everybody's saying a sign, love over fear or love not fear. They're not just holding it up. They believe it.
They truly believe it, and they
lead
and they live it.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. To the best of their ability, they live it.
Yeah.
So you want to go to another segment here?
Sure.
Let's see. So this one here, the tunnel vision, I think that's really good.
Right after this.
Okay, so that's 40.
No, you can just probably.
Oh, really? Just keep going? Yeah, okay. I'll just press play here.
Yeah.
And I'll first do this. There.
Sheeple, the problem with sheeple are people that don't want to face this scary stuff about this world domination and the new world order and one world government. People just don't want, and that's where this cognitive dissonance comes into play, right? People are so in this fear reality, they don't want to. That's when you're in a place of love, in your place of safety, you are happy, you're safe. Yeah. You're willing to accept, or not accept, but you're willing to investigate new ideas, new avenues, new information. and then you decide whether it's true or not, right?
Okay.
So from a place of love and confidence and happiness, you're better at disseminating truth from fiction, right? Or if you're fearful, you just look at the one side, and you don't look at other sides, and you're very so you just accept what's kind of pushed down to you by your peers or what you claim to think is authority, right?
There's actually a term for that in psychology. You tend, what happens is if you're fearful,
Blinders on.
you get tunnel vision.
Yes.
And you obsess about what you're afraid of.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And that makes you unaware because you're only looking at just that one thing.
Yes.
And that leaves you vulnerable.
Yeah.
And I think what you're hinting at is it leaves you vulnerable to manipulation. Is that correct?
Yes. Bingo. Yes. Yes.
So that you can be manipulated because you're not aware, for example, for starters.
Yeah.
And because you're so afraid, you get a little bit desperate for a solution.
Yes, you get
Right?
desperate for a solution. Exactly. And so how do the elites control you? Through fear. And how do they control you through fear? Misinformation. So if you are fearful of the right stuff, you'll do the right thing. If you're fearful of the wrong stuff, you'll do the wrong thing, right? So that's why this manipulation and fear is how the government gets you to do something against your own best interest.
So, yeah, you want to take it from there?
Sure. So like he's talking about tunnel vision,
Mm-hmm.
fear. It's healthy to have a little bit fear, but if you put too much time into fear, that you get drawn into it, and then it's hard for you to come out of it, right? Because you just, as a human, you want to stay safe, you want to live, right, to survive. So if there's any fear, you want to avoid, right? But if you're obsessed with fear, you can find fear everywhere.
Yes.
Right? And then fear, and then you are going like this, and then
you're seeing the world through the lens of fear, right? So everything becomes a possible threat, right? And so I know this from personal experience. I did suffer from PTSD for many years. So that if you're not aware, that makes you constantly anxious and constantly looking for possible threats. So
everything can be a threat.
So my guard was always up, right? And all that kind of stuff. So that tunnel vision, that literally is like a tunnel, right? Literally you become you obsess over what could go wrong.
Right. That's the focus.
Yes.
Right?
So no matter what's going on around you, kids playing, right, in the schoolyard, you're worried about how they could slip and fall, right? Instead of enjoying the kids playing, right? They're just playing, right? So that's a natural outcome of being in an anxious state on an ongoing basis, right? Now, do you have to be anxious 100% of the time for that to be a factor? I would say no, but if it's quite a bit of your day, then for sure, right? If you have some of that anxiety for quite a bit of the day, then it's going to be affecting.
We cannot say how much percentage, but 50%, that's way too much.
That's way too much for your life being anxious. Oh my God. 50% of your life being anxious. Think if you get to the end of your life and half of it was anxious. Oh my God.
Yeah. So bring it down. Way lower. Right.
And this is actually well known in psychological warfare approach, strategy kind of stuff, is to manipulate people through fear. Even advertisers know this, right? So advertisers, the way you start out the commercial is, do you have too much? Do you have stinky armpits? Right? Do you have dandruff? Oh no, what about dandruff? Or oh no, what about investment anxiety? I saw a sign for that one just the other day, right? Do you have investment anxiety? And also, just minutes later, I saw, do you have tax anxiety or something. It was or it was for tax time, right?
Yeah.
So always the media is always the commercials, media, and even all the way up to psychological warfare. It's very well understood that if you want to manipulate somebody into doing something, so an ad in a commercial,
Yeah.
they want you to
Buy
their thing,
Yeah.
right? So you want to sell deodorant,
Mm-hmm.
make people afraid of having stinky armpits,
Mm-hmm.
right? If you want to sell dandruff shampoo, make them afraid of dandruff, right?
Yeah.
And so or tax, if you want to sell your tax services, make them afraid of tax anxiety. I mean, just keeps going. So all this messaging of anxiety, you don't have to look very far to find it. And what have we received in the last 2 years? I mean, oh my God, it kind of almost makes me want to cry how much messaging we've received in the media, through the news, from the government about what's going on. Has it been positive messaging? I just want to ask that question. Has it been positive, what we've been receiving? Has it been hopeful? Has it had a solution? Has there been any solution? Like you said, the one of the
Plans.
one of the requests to the government was to provide from the official opposition in Canada, challenge the government to come up with a plan to come out of this whole pandemic thing, and the government refused to do it. Right, so there isn't even a pathway out. So people that's why they're so frustrated. That's why they want to have a different answer, because the government is not providing an answer. Literally, they refuse to.
One answer.
Yeah.
They have.
What's that? Oh, vax.
Yeah.
Yeah. Get vaccinated.
Yeah.
But we could talk about that as well. That's another side of the story. There's a lot of science. Well, I don't think we're going to get to this, but he talks in this one. Maybe we'll just touch on it here quickly, because I think people understand what we're getting at is that anxiety and the manipulation. I forgot to get to that part. In the psychological warfare or the ads or anything like that, is you offer a simple, once you get people afraid of something, tax anxiety, the simple solution is call this number for this tax service, right?
Yeah. So
or
first,
buy this deodorant.
First,
right?
present the problem. Hey, you have
Create
this
a problem. Create a
problem and make them panic about the problem, and then here you go. This
Here's
is
your
your
solution. Yeah, simple solution. Just buy this, right? The government hasn't even offered that, other than the one that you mentioned. The only one they offered is a vax, right? So, where is this one here? So, this one we could talk about this. So, following the science, because there's a lot of science out there. Maybe we can save that for another episode, because there's so much. What do you think?
I don't know.
Or maybe this one, be responsible. Maybe talk about that one. That's a good one. Let's go that direction. Let's go to the responsibility stuff, because we could go on about the vax. That's a whole subject, and we're getting close on the hour.
Not towards the fear system,
We'll go to this
right?
one.
So what that means in terms of you have to be responsible, self-responsible. Don't give your responsibility to a government. So the government wants us to be kids. That's what they call it, the nanny state, right? So then you're the parent. Yeah. The government's a parent. Yeah. We stay perpetual kids. Right. So we have to get out of that. We have to become adults. That means we have to be responsible. Responsible for all aspects of our being.
What does that mean?
Food, shelter, everything. So being more self-sustainable, like for instance, having your own garden, your own home garden, or having a network of friends where you can get food locally, or in case, like, say the supermarket shuts down or whatever, you're self-reliant.
Self-sufficiency,
self-sufficiency, stocking a bit of food at home, not living paycheck to paycheck, or food to food. I don't have any food in my fridge. My fridge is empty. What if there's an emergency, or the power goes down? Right. Do you have dry food doesn't need refrigeration? Do you have water on hand? Do you have certain skills? Do you have a skill that you can trade for a commodity? Let's say the currency is gone, right? What do? Well, what if I have some precious metals, or say I've got something that you want. I've got clothes, or I've got a skill set that I can trade to you for something, right? So basically,
we do our healing services. So what you're saying
exactly.
Is, if you know how to do my taxes,
yes,
you can do my taxes, and then we can help you with our healing services. And change farther.
Exactly.
We don't need the money economy that way.
That's right.
So that's taking responsibility
Exactly.
for our own lives
Yeah.
and taking it out of the hands of the system. It's ultimately controlled by the banks and
Yes.
things like that,
Yes.
right?
And on a,
So I think this is really a beautiful point that he's making, right? That what he's getting at is that there is kind of there's a trend towards that we've seen in a trend towards creating what's called the nanny state, right? Where the government provides all the solutions, right? Through corporations, that kind of stuff, right? But programs the government sets up. If you've got a problem, the answer is the government, right? If there's something going on that some people don't like, make a new law, right? And then bring in the police to enforce it, right? So it's all about looking to the government to solve all of the problems, right? Well, what about personal responsibility is what he's saying, right? What about us becoming less dependent on the government and creating networking with other people, collaborating with other people in a way so that we take the government out of the equation and keep ourselves afloat, right? Keep ourselves working together as a community. I think is what he's talking about. Local community connections, local community, local network and an economy is what I think he's talking about. So bartering, all that kind of stuff, bartering of services.
Yeah.
I think that's really, really beautiful, right? That is, to me, part of a way out of not just the pandemic, but because it's not directly affecting health so much. I'm not sure. Maybe there's a dimension to this that I'm not thinking of that is health related. But in terms of more of the bigger picture that we've seen over decades, that get more and more laws, and now where there's just been this dramatic shift towards more laws and more government control. Because in Canada, we actually imposed the Emergencies Act, and even before the Emergencies Act was enacted, they were using the government was using every means at their disposal to have control, no matter what. It didn't matter what the people wanted or what they wanted to say or anything. Forget it. Just no. Do what your government tells you. End of story. That's what the message was from the government. And if you don't, there will be very severe consequences. We'll seize your property, which they did. They froze bank accounts of many people, like people who contributed to the trucker funding. So like they had a GoFundMe thing going,
First, and
then they give send go. In both cases, the government came in and shut them down. But what they did was, so the trucker movement just starts out, right? It's like, hey, we're going to go to Ottawa. Would you please contribute to us? So somebody in rural Saskatchewan, some Joe, right? Whatever, he sends $50 to GoFundMe, right, to support the truckers because his friends in there and that kind of stuff. Hey, that's great. I'm glad. Go demonstrate for me. He gets his bank account frozen, and he's treated as though he's a criminal.
Like which criminal's bank account got frozen before in the history?
Sometimes I think, but it's not always the case where the actual criminals get their bank accounts frozen. So like what I'm thinking is terrorists. Has that? Actually, I can't even think of them. You're right. You got a point. In what situation in history have we had bank accounts frozen by the government that we're aware of? Maybe it's happened we haven't been aware of, but has it been news? I don't think so.
Yeah, and there's so many. I have no idea how many millions donators
Donated?
Yeah.
Just regular folks, right? Yeah.
So they have the power, and I think I mentioned this last week, but they just prove that they have that power that we kind of knew, but they have the power, and then on top of that, they will do it whatever they want to do whenever they want to do
the government.
that. Yeah.
So that they have. So just say that again, just so it's absolutely clear. It seems as though pretty much, I don't know where the end point may be, but in Canada, it does seem as though the government can do whatever it wants.
Yeah. But if
And
they
we the
can,
people have no say in the matter.
pretty much, and then if that pass is just the start of it, then it's right, and more medical staff in just one QR code. That's
I'm not sure that the veterans who served in the world wars and every other military engagement since then fought so that the government could have complete control over everything, and that we the people had no say in the matter.
Yeah,
I don't
that's
think
I
that
don't
that's what
think
they
so.
fought for.
That's why lots of veterans standing up against government right now.
And so I think that's what our guest speaker was talking about here at the demonstration, is that, you know, being more responsible, being more self-reliant allows us to, as a community, take care of things rather than looking to the federal government ultimately to solve all our problems, right? So we can fix it ourselves. I mean, if you go back, you know, a couple hundred years, did we need all those laws and all that government and all that police force and everything in order to make our society work? I don't think so. So it's not automatically true that to have a society that functions, we need all those laws.
So yeah, something to think about, right?
So it's
being responsible, more independent, right? And support each other, not looking for support from top.
this one.
So
I think there's so much material we got in that interview. We can't cover it all in this recap and do it justice, but perhaps we might come back to it in a later episode.
maybe.
So we have to thank our guests for coming on. The other fellow was speaking as well. I'm sorry we didn't get to include his comments. But it was a great interview and we really appreciate it. And we welcome anybody who would like to contribute to the show. And we have to take our hats off to, honestly, to what they're saying and what they're doing, because everything they're sharing with us, I mean, we don't necessarily agree on every single point, right? Every single person that's there.
We don't have to.
We don't have to.
Yeah, we agree to disagree.
We can agree to disagree, but I think we're pretty much the general consensus is that staying in the place of love, right, is the way through this, right? And taking responsibility for ourselves will only help that. And not being manipulated by government, right? Not being manipulated by fear is a way through this. And that's I think a very powerful and beautiful message. And so we thank our guests for coming on and sharing that.
And then we can finish this up with this love of drumming.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Let's do that.
So they played drums for us, and then spreading the love and happiness and sense of feeling what they call the safetyness when you're feeling fun, happy.
That's how they feel when these two guys when they drum. That's how they feel. So that's one of their ways of expressing their love, right? So. Am I there?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll press play here and just do this first. And here we go. We'll let this guy roll us out of here on the show. Thank you for joining, and join us again next week, Sunday at 4 o'clock Eastern. Thank you for joining. And we love you. And don't forget to subscribe to it. That was awesome. So thank you guys, and we'll see you next week.
Let's see you next week.
Bye bye.